KDB Football Focus. I hope you guys are having a terrific day. Of course, you know my name is Al. I'm your host of this wonderful show. I want to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Anyway, I'd like to start this. Of course, we're talking about UFL football as always. So, I've already talked about last week. We reviewed those games. There's some other information I want to tell you about the UFL that's going on right now. But let's get started with the game. So, the first game that on the list, it really has no big implications other than the fact that these two teams are going to play each other back-to-back. The Birmingham Stallions and the Michigan Panthers. So, both teams are currently in the playoffs. Neither one is fighting for home field advantage in this game, but this is bragging rights. That's how it goes. And this the week you want to have the other team send a message or a statement to the other team before they get to the playoffs of how you gonna play in the playoffs. So that being said, this game is important to both teams as they go into this. So you can imagine this being a heated game just as much as the next game being a heated game, because how they play this week can affect how they play next week. This is going to happen twice in this week's games about playoff teams playing each other back to back. So here's the thing with Michigan Panthers. Michigan Panthers is playing musical chair at quarterback. I don't know which quarterbacks will be leading this week. Most likely it'll be one of the guys that's already been there. E.J. Perry may even come back. So they've been through 4 quarterbacks or 5, maybe 5 quarterbacks altogether. It will be one of those. It may be it may be Etling. It may be these other guys that have been there, Walker, or one of the other 2 quarterbacks. So we shall see what happens. Now, we know that Michigan also has a strong running game, and Birmingham lately, and I'm bringing up Birmingham here, has been getting chewed up on the ground. They've been letting too many yards go on the ground, and that's hurt them against Houston the week before, and then last week it definitely hurt them bad against San Antonio. San Antonio ran the ball all over them, and actually they passed the ball all over them too. Now, let's talk about the Stallions. Stallions are having some issues because John Chavis was the defensive coordinator. I listened to an interview earlier this week on WBRC6 with Skip Holtz, local TV channel here. He talked about the fact that Chavis had a procedure. Chavis was out for a while, then he tried to come back, and it just didn't feel right to Chavis. I hate the fact that happened because, it's like, hey, we don't have our quarterback. We don't have our coach. But John Chavis was an important, integral part of the team. He was a great defensive coordinator. That he made one of the top defenses in the league by far. The good part about that is they got another coordinator, Corey Chamblin, is coming in. He has had some stints. His first came with Hamilton, 3 years removed from his first Grey Cup victory in 2008. This is all on UFL Hub. He was hired as the defense coordinator for the Ticats in that season. Chamberlain has also been the coordinator under the Michigan Panthers before. So he's had an opportunity there. I think he played offensive coordinator, however, in that case. But he's going to be the defensive coordinator here. He's decided to do something I think is great, and I want to say this up front. One of my friends and former teammates, Anthony Blevins, is going to be coming to town to coach for the Stallions in this last couple of weeks. And I think this is going to be a big deal. It's a hard transition because it's a last-minute transition. You only got a couple of weeks. It's going to be rough on the defense. Like I said, it's one thing to lose a player. It's another thing to lose your coordinator of your defense. So the defense was hurt in the past couple of weeks. Hopefully this has stabilized the defense. I think Blevins is a good guy. He may be known to local folks. Like I said, he played for UAB like I did. He also is local talent from Pleasant Grove. He grew up in Birmingham. He knows Birmingham well. So he'll be great for recruiting. Great for basically promotion of the team and stuff like that because he's local. He also coached, with some other people saying he has never coached in Alabama before. I want y'all to know he coached 1 year for, maybe 2, for the UAB team here in Birmingham. So he was the secondary coach here at UAB 2013, 12 or 13. Don't have me started, but that was when he was the coordinator here. Now, he has also played for the original XFL team, the Birmingham Bolts. He also played for the Birmingham Steel Dogs. I believe he had a stint in the CFL and the NFL. So he's had a couple of stops where he's been doing some things. Haven't seen him in a while. I'm glad he's back in town. I know that he was going to get the head coach job with the Vegas Vipers. With the merger, the Vegas Vipers were cut from all the teams because, like I said, when they merged the UFL with the XFL, they decided to cut some teams. And we'll talk about that in a minute because that's going to affect some other things. Get back to Birmingham. Birmingham has issues on defense. Offensively, they should be fine. They didn't score much against San Antonio. San Antonio exposed Birmingham in a lot of ways. Birmingham only managed 9 points against San Antonio last week. Now, this Michigan defense is pretty tough also. Hopefully Birmingham has made adjustments and they'll play better this week. Martinez was able to run on San Antonio last week, but it wasn't very effective in the end. Like I said, they only scored 9 points. So hopefully the offense will do better next week. The defense was kind of getting torched, even though San Antonio only managed 18 points against the defense. That's still enough. That was enough to win. That was more. That was twice the number of points that Birmingham scored. That says a whole lot because Birmingham looked like the one of the 3-11 teams in that game, or or one of the 1-8 teams in the game instead of the 8-1 team in that game. So Birmingham's got a lot to improve on. I think they had a wake-up call last week, and they'll be better in this game. The game's probably going to be close. If Birmingham wins, it's going to be 18-16. If Michigan wins, it's going to be 18-16. I'm not giving a prediction for that game as far as who's going to win that game because I just don't know right now. The musical quarterback thing at Michigan gives me some doubts that they will have a strong offense. At the same time, Birmingham's defense is in a wee bit of flux right now at a crucial time right before the playoffs, so we'll see how that goes. Now, moving on to the other game that has playoff implications. So the reason why this game has playoff implications because St. Louis Battlehawks lost last week to the Renegades, which was, to me, an awful loss for them, but they had Manny playing quarterback. So this week, I believe A.J. McCarron is back, so their offense should be better this week because the offense had almost no production other than a few runs and a few passes last week. Manny tried his best to be the quarterback, but they got behind and it was over with. So, since San Antonio beat Alabama, or Birmingham last week, right now San Antonio has home field advantage. Now, if St. Louis can win this game, they will get home field advantage back, and therefore they'll be at home throughout the entire playoffs because even the championship game will be at St. Louis Stadium. So the opportunity is there for them to do that. I think with McCarron back, I can give an edge to St. Louis on this game because they're playing at home again against San Antonio. San Antonio wants to take this game back to San Antonio, so this is going to be a tough game. Chambers is playing. He's back. Chalmers, he's back. He's a pretty good quarterback. I still think this one's going to be close. It's like 21-18, whichever way it could go. This is another one of those games. Now, another game that has no meaning whatsoever, because another game does have a meaning, you'd be surprised that it would, is DC Defenders versus Arlington Renegades. So, DC Defenders are basically playing to be 5-5. And Arlington Renegades are looking for another win. They would like to finish the season with not just 2 wins, with 3 wins. That would be one less than they had last year, but it'd still be more than the bottom 2 teams. So they're both looking for another win. That's the big thing here. I think Duran Teamo will have a decent game. He will play his heart out. We will see his wide receivers played their best game against a pretty decent Renegade defense. Of course, Luis Perez will do what Luis Perez does. I think he'll play pretty well. The running game is improved as well. Who do I give this game to? I still think the DC Defenders have the edge in this game. So we shall see what happens there. I just think they're just a better team, period. So then we can move on to a game that this is just something that the league has decided to do. And I think it's a good idea since these are the 2 teams who are at the race for the bottom. That's Houston Renegades and the Memphis Showboats, because both of them only have 1 game apiece. Memphis won their first game and never won again. Memphis won their third or 4th game of the season and haven't won since. Whoever wins this game gets the number 1 draft pick in the UFL draft. So they're playing for something. They're playing to get that draft pick for their team. So I think all the players are going to play their best game because as another commentator said that the biggest thing is everybody's trying to get in the NFL. You have to put your best resume out because they're only a couple of weeks from training camp. At this point, they're only a couple of months from training camp, about a month or so after this is over with from training camp. You got to put your best foot forward and put some film out there. So I think everybody's going to give a great game. But playing for this incentive for Memphis and Houston is great. I think Houston may have a little bit more in the tank. Geez, it's hard to say with these two teams, but I think Houston has a little bit more in the tank for this particular game and will end up winning this game. So, before I move on to everything else, let me just give you my fearless ranking of every team in Week 10 of the season. First is still, despite their loss, which was a terrible loss, number one is Birmingham. And I do mean barely number one. But they are number one because of that. That was a terrible loss. They lost 18-9. They scored half the points as their opponents, which is unusual for Birmingham. But they did hold their opponent to 18 points, which says a whole lot considering the chaos on defense. So they're still number one. They have the most wins in the league. Bottom line. Number two, right behind them at this point is San Antonio. San Antonio has surged. Their defense has continued to be a stalwart. Their offense is getting better. Maybe they got the quarterback in play for the playoffs. They're looking really, really good. I put them in number two. Number three is St. Louis. St. Louis, only issue right now is they're missing A.J. McCarron, and they haven't found any answer in Manny as a backup. He's won a game for him, but then he lost a game for him as well. He couldn't come back in that game. The rest of the team didn't seem to show up either, so that's a big issue. But they are number three. Number four, and very close number four, is the surging Michigan Panthers. The Michigan Panthers, the running game has improved as the season has gone along. It's gotten even better. It's gotten stronger. It's gotten faster. The defense is just ridiculously good. They've got probably an MVP candidate or two on defense this year. So that's something to watch out for. Then after that comes everybody else. DC Defenders comes next. They're at 5-5. They've been good enough at times to win games, but they've also lost a lot of games. If they win this weekend, they'll be 5-5. They deserve to be where they are in the rankings at number 5. Number 6. Or it's number 6. No, they're number 6. Okay, number 6 is the Renegades. Renegades have been a better team. They're probably right there with DC. They could have probably been 5-5 at this point, but they've made some mistakes at critical times. Penalties, holding calls, fumbles, interceptions, all the things that came at the wrong time. Jordan Perez leads the league in yards. It's for a quarterback, and that's amazing. He just doesn't have touchdowns or other numbers that quarterbacks have, but he does have the yards. He leads in yards, so he's been putting up the numbers trying to get them in the end zone, and it hasn't always succeeded. So I put them there. Next comes probably the Roughnecks, and barely, just because they have a decent defense. They have all kinds of trouble at quarterback. Running game is suspect, even though sometimes it has shown up. But because of that defense, I give them the 7th place spot. At number 8, dead last on the list is Memphis Showboats, who have been a huge disappointment to this year. They had Case Cookins, I thought, was one of the best quarterbacks, but that offensive line has been terrible this year. Case Cookins is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's the most sacked quarterback in the league. I can't remember. I think that may be Te'amu at this point, but Memphis has one of the most sacked quarterbacks. Case Cookins was taking so many hits. It was ridiculous. The running game is non-existent. The passing game is barely there since Case Cookins. And anybody Williams, when they put him in the game, he was running for his life. It's just that bad at Memphis. Defensively, they just seem to sometimes do something and then just give up. Poor Memphis. So, I've given you my rankings of each team. I've talked about the what's going on this season. So, let me get to this so we can sort of wrap all of this up. Let's talk about what's going on with the UFL. So, I've been giving you different information about updates on the UFL every week. So, Daryle Johnson came out and did an interview. UFL Hub sort of talked about this a little bit. Basically, in that interview, he was talking about why attendance was not the way it should be this year for the UFL teams. One of that problem was marketing. It didn't happen because the merger happened so late, so they didn't have enough time. Because I remember, if you think about this, the Michigan Panthers were trying to sell tickets 2 weeks before the season started to people. Season tickets, 2 weeks. They hadn't been selling the whole time. Now all of a sudden they're trying to sell season tickets to people 2 weeks before the season starts, and regular season tickets. So that tends to not do a good job of getting people to come out to the game. Now you got a whole year. Everybody's going to get a year. So what we're not going to do, according to Johnson, is move teams. We're going to give them a year to get themselves together. We're going to try to market things. And at the same time, they're still talking about league expansion. I know I said they in my last speech that they had kind of tabled that. I still think they're going to table it, but they've got so many rights and things out there. Plus, they promised the government they would expand, that they have to talk about that and consider it on how they're going to work that out. But I think the team needs another year. I'm sure revenue needs another year before they talk about expansion. TV numbers look good. It's steady. Keyword is steady. 900,000 to 1 million people watching games is good. I think it's a little bit lower than that. It's about 800,000 to 900,000, but it's a good number. It's steady. That's enough to keep the league going. Looking at some other things that's important to this, like just talk about what Johnson's talking about numbers-wise. So the average league attendance for most teams is 9,000. The big boy on the block is in St. Louis. St. Louis is getting 34,000 a game. DC's probably about 14,000. Birmingham 12 to 14, 10 to 14,000 a game. But they're averaging out 9 because of some games. Memphis, of course, is tanking. They're like down at 7,000. Michigan, which is doing really good, should be doing better, but they're only getting about 7,000 a game. I think they have more fans on TV. And again, that's an excellent TV market, by the way, the Michigan market. So that's a really good market. Houston is suffering. Renegades are suffering. If you're the bottom team and you're not really winning any games, like I said, Memphis has only won one game this year. So that is not good for marketing. That is not good for the league. Hopefully they can get those numbers better. Hopefully they can market and get the people out there. I know people go, oh, Memphis sucked last year. But see, the draft is coming. They can improve the roster over the season, pick up players, whether it's free agents, so on and so forth, whatever they feel they need to fix the team and get it going. Meanwhile, they can market their team. That's what every team has got to do. And I'm going to talk about the Birmingham market again. Birmingham ran up against a couple of things this year. I talked about this. And I talk about this week after week when I talk about attendance. Birmingham ran up in the very first game. They ran against the A-Day game. The Alabama A-Day game, Auburn A-Day game. They ran up against those games. This is a college football state. They're college football crazy. It's not that they don't like the Birmingham Stallions, but they're going to go to the A-Day game or Auburn game before they do that. That's the first thing. Second game, the other big thing here is NASCAR. They ran up against NASCAR weekend. NASCAR weekend is like it. Go to a mall in Birmingham on NASCAR weekend. It's empty, literally. But between Alabama football and NASCAR on those weekends, the malls are empty. You can go shopping for days without having to worry about standing in line or not getting helped in the mall. Literally, that's how important those things are. Also, we ran into a bad weather week where people knew it was going to be a bad weather, so a lot of people didn't come to the game that day. Protective Stadium is an outdoor stadium. It is what it is. There's only, 2 domes in the league anyway? Most teams play outside. So when people complain, I heard somebody saying, oh, that Protective Stadium's bad, Birmingham weather is bad, yada, yada, yada. Well, let me explain something. Most teams play outside anyway. They have to deal with it. Weather is something that happens. That's just part of the game. So then, we ran up against also the Regions Classic, Golf Classic, in another game. Now, that was a good week, actually, for us because we had one of the most anticipated games in the week for the Stallions. It drew about 14,000, but I think it would have drawn more if the Regions Golf Classic wasn't in town. Regions, it's kind of like the senior tour. Some of the greatest golfers of all time are here playing it out at the Robert Trent Jones Golf Course, and so that's major. So a lot of people were there. but a lot of people were also at the game. So, and then we had some folks from St. Louis also show up. So it made a decent crowd. We had 14,000, 15,000 people there. That was awesome. But then we had another game the week after. Wasn't quite the same attendance. Again, if they're promoted well, people show up. And the problem with it, I think we're playing Houston, so a lot of people are like, it's Houston. They're going to beat them, whatever. I'll stay home for this one. I'll wait till the Panthers come to town or something like that. So this week, Michigan Panthers are playing in town. Hopefully we get a decent crowd talking to people now about showing up at the game. I know this is late in the week. It's Saturday, probably Saturday morning by the time you hear this, but here's your opportunity to show up at the game. It's important that you show up at the game. Lastly, I want to talk about this. The playoffs are coming. Playoffs are coming. Are going to be important. We'll see how that draws attention, what kind of attendance we get for that. If they're good games, most likely it's definitely going to draw more people into the league, and we'll see how they do for next year. But anyway, folks, I've had a wonderful time talking to y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the games. Peace.